My name's Tommy and I'm an addict. I came to Indiana for We Grow with Love 1, and I had never been in the Midwest before. I had no idea what to expect, and I actually thought it was going to be like about real prejudiced rednecks and like real straight. I mean, this is like what my perception was. I had no clue. I thought it was going to be about real cold and, we hate everybody that doesn't look like us or talk like us kind of thing, And I was a little nervous about it, to be honest with you. I think this convention is really aptly named because when I got here, I got so much love and so many people reached out to me that I was home. I was really home. And so behind that, I was able to make some really, really tight friendships that are real important in my recovery. And it was definitely a turning point for me in my recovery. So, I come from a real big family. I have 7 brothers and sisters, Italian Roman Catholics, no birth control. So when the TV was down, Mom made babies. Sometimes it seemed like being Italian American was a disease in itself. I can remember after a couple of years of getting clean, my first compulsion to use something was sugar. I used to steal money out of my mom's purse, going back to the first grade, so I could buy sweets. And I had to have it. And I know that I would have got the devil loved it, heck beat out of me if I would have got caught. But I took the chance, and it didn't mean nothing to me. You know what I mean? Till I got clean, and I looked back and I said, wow, I've been doing this longer than I thought. So then I went on to real using stuff, and that was in about the 7th grade, and it was about beer and Southern Comfort, and it was an awkward kind of age. Some of the guys were just starting to date and stuff, and I came from a big family, so it wasn't about you had as nice clothes as other people, and I laid this whole trip on myself. It began younger that I was less than. I don't know how I made this up, but I made it up, and I began to live that. And so life was painful, and life sucked, and I wasn't as good as anybody else. And so I got out of grade school and went into high school, and all hell broke loose, and I discovered pot was my first one. I smoked a joint by the bocce court behind high school. And almost got caught the first time. A little scooter cop rolled up, and I had to eat it. Should have told me something, but it didn't. Actually, what it did was it made me appreciate finding things like THC and mescaline not long after that. Because you didn't really have to worry about getting caught. When you ate it, you were done with it, and you stayed whacked for 12 hours. And I liked that stuff. I mean, it really took me out of myself, because by the time I was in high school, around my 2nd year, I really had myself labeled a complete freak. I had myself labeled some kind of emotionally handicapped kind of person. And I didn't have what it took to date. I felt like no one was ever going to want to go out with me because I was weird. And I don't know where any of this stuff came from. You know what I mean? When I look back at pictures, I would look some semblance of normality. I mean, I was like a hippie then. So I had this real long hair and the patches on the jeans and the whole nine, the whole outfit. And I just looked like any other kid from the outside. But my image of me was that I was completely crazy and abnormal, and that no one would ever want to be with me. Even to go to a movie or something, no one would ever want to do it. And I had dropped out of high school. In my 2nd year, I only made some classes in school, and the classes that I did go to, I did real well in. I mean, I knew I wasn't stupid or a fool, but I knew I had a problem. I just dropped out and I went to work. Plus, going to work made it easy to use. And I also thought that money was going to solve my problems. The problem was that I wasn't fitting in was because I was broke. So I figured I'd go to work, and I'd get a car, and I'd get money to go on dates, like good dates, and I'd be okay. And so that worked for a little while. And I did begin to do some dating after I went to work. All consumed by fear the whole time. It was amazing. I remember being so frightened. And from way back then, because now it would have been my 4th year of high school, about when I started dating. I thought that I could pull off an act for a while. And I could convince you for a while that I was okay. But what's happening now was that I had this feeling that you were going to find out the real truth if I let you get real close. So I never dated for any period of time. And I did a lot of street corner hanging out. That was the big thing. Where I come from, it's inner city. And so where we hung out was places like apartment building basements and boiler rooms, alleyways, hallways, rooftops. That's where we used. It kept us off the streets, and we weren't so visible, and we were able to avoid getting busted. And we had this real camaraderie, all of us. And we were this crew that called ourselves the Misfits. And I think inside, all of us felt the same. All of us felt like we didn't belong anywhere. Using got to be a good social thing for a while when I discovered cocaine. I could go out to clubs, and I could drink, and I could yak your ear off the entire night. No problem. We could talk for days on end on cocaine. And I thought, finally got the good one. This one's going to make me socially acceptable. Because I can talk non-stop now, no awkward silences. If I'm not going 100 miles an hour, somebody else is. So this was it. I'm home. Cocaine is it, and I ran with it. And I dealt it, and I was the king for a while, bringing ounces upstate into the mountains to people up there that didn't have none. So I was very cool then, and they would all be waiting for me to get up there on Friday night, because they couldn't start their lives until I arrived. I had all this power. But I couldn't stop using it. And so what happened was I began to have all this debt. So I had to stop dealing it, because the people that I was dealing this stuff for weren't real friendly. And I knew that I was going to end up in a suitcase in the dump in Staten Island if I didn't watch myself. So I stopped, and I paid everybody back, and I just used for the next couple of years coke. It wasn't so bad. It really wasn't so bad. It kept me from feeling. So it was doing its job. I could lay in bed all night long and do lines with a whole bunch of beers there and just keep emptying the bottles and filling the bottles and emptying the bottles and filling the bottles and have to go nowhere, and I was real comfortable. And I had no noise in my head. I didn't feel nothing. So I was getting my money's worth. What started happening after a while, I started to feel through it. And I started to feel like that kid again that started using because he felt less than. And I started to get frightened. Because my dad used till he died. And I thought my disease was hereditary as well. And I thought I was going to have to use feeling the way I felt till I died. And what was happening was the nightmare was becoming real, because people were starting to look at me like I was less than. Because I wasn't taking care of myself, and I wasn't shaving, and I didn't really care about much no more. And I was starting to rob, and I was starting to manipulate, and I was starting to hurt people around me, and people were starting to look at me the way I felt. And I was starting to feel real hopeless, and I didn't want to live. But there was something else for me. There was crack cocaine. And I discovered crack cocaine and I was home again. And all I had to do was smoke a couple little rocks and I didn't feel nothing no more. Except psychotic. And it was kind of amusing watching everybody else around you that was psychotic, looking under the door, listening to the wolf. Craziness. And we were spending money for this, good money for this. I was selling my ass for that. And I thought it was great. Because it really kept me from feeling for a while. And also, by that time, I was pretty low. And the people that were doing that were pretty low, so I had camaraderie. The misery needs company, and I had some. So I was okay for a while. What started to happen was that the psychosis was getting real bad. And then what started to happen too is I started to feel through that too. See, what started to happen was in the mornings, I would look out through the crack in the shade and see people going to work. Dressed nice, carrying suitcases, holding their wife's hands, going to work. They looked pretty comfortable. I didn't hope, and I didn't think there was any way out of this. And I thought it was just going to be a matter of me finding the right things to use until it finally killed me. I didn't think I was ever going to have a way out. Nope. But I did really, really, really not want to live that way. I really, really, really didn't want to live my whole life like that. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do the freaking prostituting, which sucked. Half the times you got beat up and you get no money. I don't know, I didn't want to do it. So what I did was I moved upstate into the woods. My family had this kind of summer house, sort of, like a little cinder block bunker, and nobody had really gone there for a while, and I decided I was going to go up there and I was going to get clean. If it killed me, I wasn't going to use, because I really didn't want to use. And so I thought that if I would just stop, I'd be okay. And I did. And I did 6 months. I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, I didn't use nothing for 6 months. At the end of 6 months, I was ready for the asylum. I was ready for the straitjacket and the doors. I was completely bug shit, emotionally cracked, cried at the drop of a dime, did not know what to do with myself, couldn't leave the house. Couldn't leave. I was locked in this tiny little bedroom and I had sort of sectioned off out of some stuff I found, and I couldn't leave the room. So what I discovered then was that I couldn't live with or without the use of drugs. I had to use to leave that house, and so I did. And I got myself a quart of vodka and I sucked it down and then went out and back to the races again. And I really, really knew that there was no hope for me, that I had to use. I had to use to function at some kind of level, some kind of manageability. At least I could hold some kind of job or something if I just stayed off the hard stuff. No, that was in September of 1987. And I lasted till holding up some semblance of normalcy for about 2 months. And I started just drinking the blackout, doing the coke again, smoking some crack a little bit. And Christmas rolled around, and I swore I was going to not be an embarrassment again. And at least for my family, for this one Christmas, I wanted them all to look at me like I was okay and talk to me like I was okay and not like a... I hated that fucking sound. And so I almost made it through the whole Christmas day. And somebody had bought me a bottle of some, this Polish potato vodka. And so I was just nipping it a little bit, just to take the edge off. But what happened was by about 8 o'clock, I was fucking bombed out of my skull. And everybody started looking at me and shaking their head and going. And I really felt like so lousy. I felt the way, like the morning that my dad, like the last morning before he went into the hospital and then died a couple of days later, I was up with him. I was like a kid. And, you know, he banged down the shot of ambassadors in the morning. And he turned around and looked at me and turned white as a ghost. And he ran to the bathroom and started throwing up blood. And I went in there and looked at it, my room was splattered with blood. And he gave me this look like self-loathing. Like I fucked my whole life up and I'm embarrassed in front of you, son, kind of thing. And that's how I felt inside. Like his expression, I felt like that Christmas. And I really kind of made a decision that I wasn't going to live my whole life like that. And I was going to take myself out. I wasn't going to live like that. It was torture. It was freaking torment. It was the tortures of the damned. It was a nightmare. And I wasn't going to spend my whole life like that. So, when at the end of the road, what happens is somebody shows up from my past. Somebody who I hadn't seen for a while. You know, I was down at my friend Peter's house and we were drinking some Metaxa, some Christmas stuff he stole from somebody. And some friends of ours showed up from Philadelphia who were pretty low bottom people. Real filthy, smelly, dirty. They were me. They were us, you know? And they showed up clean looking, dressed nicely, groomed even. And they said they found a better way. And they said that they believed that they didn't have to use again a day at a time for the rest of their life. And it sounded to me like they were in Disneyland. Because that wasn't going to happen for me. Not the reality I lived in. See, I inherited this from my daddy. And I wasn't going to catch no break like that. It might work for them, but it wasn't going to work for me. But you know what? I was kind of at the end of my road, and I figured, well, before I take myself out, I'll take a look. And she said, fine, I'll come pick you up tomorrow night, and we'll go to a meeting. Now, this was in January of 1988, and the Reverend Moon had a big thing going on at the time, and I thought that's what it was about. I really did. I thought that's where I was going, and I thought I was going to be selling flowers on the off-ramps on the highway. But you know what? If that was going to keep me clean, I'd have done it. I'd be selling flowers still if it was going to keep me clean. That's how hopeless. But it wasn't. They took me to this church basement, and there were all these freaky-looking people who were saying they were clean. And some of them were saying they had like 30 days clean. And they were smiling with 30 days clean. I thought they were lying, every last one of them. But you know what? There were some cute-looking babes in that room. And I said, you know what? I'm going to check this out. And so I went to my next meeting. I got shaved, and I combed my hair and everything, and I didn't work. Because you see, I decided to go clean. And I walked in there and I almost shit myself. I was so frightened. I didn't know what was going on. So I slunk into the back of the room. And I hoped nobody would notice me and say anything to me. And I sat through the meeting. And somebody came up to me and hugged me. And I split. I didn't want nobody touching me. I didn't like being touched. I felt dirty. I felt like you were going to steal my wallet. I didn't feel like you wanted to nurture me. And really, why would anybody want to hug somebody else? For what? I didn't even like touching people before sex. But I did see a spark of something there. I really did. And in the back of my head, I kind of made a commitment to show up and make some meetings. And so I found a couple of meetings in Brooklyn where nobody would talk to you if you didn't want to be talked to, and nobody would hug you if you didn't want to be hugged. And you could sit there and do nothing and nobody would bother you. And I went to those meetings. And I went every night. I sat in the back. And then this guy, Delaware Joe, asked me to do one of the readings. And I started sweating and shaking. And I could hear my heart beating so loudly that I couldn't hear anything else in the room because I had to read this thing. And I read it, and I was sweating, and there was this vein sticking out of my forehead that was pulsing. And somebody touched me on the shoulder and said, "Don't worry about it, it's going to be all right." And I had this feeling of warmth and like something hit me that I hadn't felt before. And a couple days after that, I went to a meeting, and now we're going like 26 days now, and I haven't used nothing. And I don't know how that's happening. Because now I got a lot of noise going on in my head and a lot of stuff. But I don't feel like I need a straitjacket just yet. So I'm kind of figuring that maybe there really is something going on here. Maybe these people aren't so full of shit. But I don't really believe it really yet. Because now I'm starting to hear about people celebrating a year clean. He's fucking crazy. I said before, I ain't stupid, and I was no fool, so I said, you know what, they want to play the charade terrific. They still don't look so bad, so something must be going on okay. But what started to happen in about 30 days was that I got the desire to use again. And I got the desire to use real strong. And it was at the end of a 10 o'clock meeting. And I knew that if I left that meeting without talking to somebody, I was going to use. I knew it. I knew I was going. This demon was up my ass, across my spine, and had a lock on my head that I wasn't going to get out of it, and I knew it. It had me by the short and curlies. And there was nowhere to run. So I walked over to this guy that I had seen from the biker days out there, and I said, "Excuse me, would you be my sponsor?" He said, "Man, I'm just here for the chicks. But if you want, there's a guy over there that'll sponsor you." And I looked over and I said, "You gotta be kidding me." This guy was clean cut. And all the meetings he was talking about God. I got God in my life. And my life's getting pretty good. And I got faith in God, and I believe in God. And I said, "What do I want this guy for a sponsor for? What a loser." But I didn't want to use, and I knew I was going to use, and I was pretty desperate, and the meeting was starting to break up. So I walked over to him, and I said, "Excuse me, would you be my sponsor?" And he said, "What length are you willing to go to?" I said, "What?" And he says, "Are you willing to go to any lengths for your recovery?" And I said, "Sure, mister." I mean, of course, I figured that meant that I was going to have sex with him, wash his car, do his dishes, because that's how I live my life. Nobody did nothing for nothing, and I really didn't quite catch on to what this Narcotics Anonymous thing was about yet. But I was willing to do that too. I'd done it for less, and if I could put together some clean time and be happy, and if all of yous were doing it, what the hell, you know? So he said that you got to call me tomorrow, just to ask me again, like he didn't believe me, and like it didn't take all the courage that I could possibly muster up to do it, and if my back wasn't dead against the wall enough. But he said to call him and ask him again tomorrow. And he said that the commitment is going to be that I'm going to have to call him and let no more than 2 days go by without him hearing from me. I'm going to have to get all the literature and read it. And we're going to go on the journey of the steps. And I said, how quaint. The journey of the steps. Isn't that nice? It really sounded freaking corny and stupid to me, this whole thing. It sounded really ridiculous. It really did. Those steps, I did them like the third meeting. They were done. I knew what all of them were about. The traditions, they made sense. Of course you're going to have them. I understood the whole thing. So why do I got to do anything else? I already know. Right? But he said that we're going to share stuff and invite God and, you know what I mean, and this whole business. And he gave me this list of stupid questions to answer about powerlessness and unmanageability and acceptance and admitting and honesty, and it rocked my world. I couldn't believe what was happening to me. I was going to write something about honesty, and as I began writing about honesty, I realized that I didn't have a clue what honesty meant. Not the vaguest notion. No idea at all. And so I had to begin making phone calls to people and saying, what is this all about? And I called my friend in Philly that introduced me to the program. And I said, I think I got a real psycho as a sponsor. I think this guy's crazy. He wants me to write about stuff, abstract concepts. Philosophy class, you know? She said, sounds like you got a good sponsor, and I knew I was fucked. I knew I was going to have to buy into this. But what happened at that time was that, like, I was a pretty arrogant guy out there. You know, I was very chameleon-like, and I would switch from being, like, completely butch, macho, I'll cut your fucking face, you scum, to like, the raging queen. I would swing, you know what I mean? I could do any of them very well. So I was feeling very butch macho this one night, and I said, you know what, I'm going to make a challenge to this recovery thing. I'm kind of stepping into it, and it's kind of strange, and it's kind of different, but I still don't think it's going to work for me. But I want to make sure that you're full of shit, because I was feeling real like Rambo macho, like real fucking macho, like Bruce Willis, like tough, short hair, sweaty. And I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take every suggestion that I get. And it's not going to work for me. And I'm going to come back and blow your fucking smiley faces right off of your faces, every one of you. That crazy, belligerent attitude saved my ass. Because I did take every freaking suggestion that was given to me. And let me tell you something. It was not easy. The process began immediately. I wrote what I was supposed to write. I made prompt appointments. I showed up. I kept them. I made a meeting a day. I got the phone numbers. Fucking phone weighed 600 pounds. I got it up. I fucking dialed the damn thing. I made up stories. Hi, this is Tommy. Yeah, I want to use. I didn't know what to do. I called people up. I took every single, I read that text. I got a commitment, making coffee, put tables away, put chairs away, swept the room, showed up early, stayed late. I did every single thing that was told of me to do. Started greeting the new guys, letting people hug me. I did it. And most of all, I didn't use no matter what. I had like 2.5 months clean and experienced the first death of somebody close to me in recovery, a friend of mine that helped me out upstate when I was doing that kicking thing. And I was real fortunate because I was like in this already. I was like locked in. It was like 30 days of fucking grueling work and torture. And I got an awakening that death isn't bad. That I'm allowed to grieve. This is like with a hot 60 days. I realized that I was allowed to grieve this. It was okay for me to cry and feel it, and that was a gift. And that how this person touched me in my life was a gift. And that's what this was about. It hit me. That's what this is about. It's about every single thing that happens to me in my life is going to be a blessing. Whether I choose to accept it that way or not, that's the bottom line. And I was sailing. I got a shit-eating grin on from ear to ear, and I had it on, I still have it on. I really, 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 really knew that this worked. At that point in time, I knew this worked. At 6 months clean, I had to have my spine operated on. And I walked in there like happy-go-lucky because like I knew this worked. And I knew that 6 months clean, that I was going into that hospital to help other people. So I was like going to the phone and calling newcomers, how you doing, this and that, and talking to everybody in my room and sharing my flowers with them and all this business. And I had a great time. I had a really good time. Surgery's fantastic. You should really try it. I came to find out what like living without fear and self-loathing is about. Total self-acceptance. Completely allowing myself to be anything, and I mean anything, I happen to want to be at any given time. Anything I feel like on any particular day is okay. Pretty amazing stuff, this recovery. I never had that. I never had any acceptance of who I was. I mean, I always hated everybody else. I was okay with that. And I could still like carry that on in recovery if I wanted to. But hating me really sucked, and I was so like happy to be free of that. So what began to happen to me in my recovery was that I started to begin to accept gifts. Didn't like gifts. Didn't trust gifts. And the gifts that I started to be able to accept was the gifts of being able to share what I got. And being able to share openly with other people who I am. And what happened was, I started like this, like really big journey. This is all like working through the steps. I mean, I blew through the first 5 steps in my first year. Like before I celebrated my first anniversary, I actually had my 5th step. And let me tell you something, that was not easy. I was very frightened. At that point, I still didn't trust my sponsor. But because of the gifts that I got, and the magic I knew that was here, and this relationship with this God that I was developing, that I knew for sure was real, because I felt it. I knew it was real. I knew it wasn't a con. I knew that God wasn't about weak people. They gotta pray, they gotta go to church, they're social misfits, they need retarded friends, they go to church. That's what I thought God was about. It was about fools, it was about this whole ridiculous thing. Rituals, all that business. What I got to discover was that God is like a power. And the reason why in Narcotics Anonymous we say it's the God of your understanding is because that power is a little bit different for everybody. And what happened was, during the course of my recovery, is I got to see that that power also varies in degrees for me. And it varies in the way that I find that higher power has changed and evolved. When I first started praying, it was suggested I get on my knees. I had a problem with that. In the first place, I thought it was like a lead into a religion. And I didn't like religions. I was very intellectual, and I was out there. I was a very smart guy. I read books. Couldn't talk to people, so I read books. And I read about the Crusades, and I read about all the people that died behind the banners and the glories and all this business. And I knew it was all scam. So when he told me to hit my knees, I said no. But I had to go back to the commitment. And the commitment was that I was willing to go to any lengths. And so I hit my knees. And I felt this thing like electric. And it scared the bejesus out of me. And I called him right back and I said, what is going on here? What did you do? Like I thought it was a plant, like they do something so that you feel something, so that you think there's a God and you suck it in. And he said, what happened? I said, I hit my knees and I felt something. He said, you're supposed to. Okay. But what really started to happen was, this was a big one at about, see, when I came into the rooms, I was pretty low bottom. My brother Vinny was even lower bottom. My brother Vinny showed up and where I was working, and I hugged him, and he had a big down jacket on. I felt his ribs through the jacket. My brother Vinny used to be a hefty guy, but smoking coke was taking him down quick, and I could just tell by his face that he wasn't going to live long. So I asked in the rooms if we could include him in the prayer at the end of the meeting, and they told me he's already in there, and so were you when you were out there. Who do you think this is for? And I said, okay. And what happened was, about 50 days into my recovery, he calls me up, and he's in the flight deck at Coney Island Hospital, and he asked me to bring him a sandwich. And I went up there, and it was the most pathetic sight I'd ever seen in my life. It's a locked ward, and they don't let you in, so you get up on the elevator, and the door opens, and there's a cage in front of you. And he scuttles over in his blue PJs and those funky slippers, and he takes the sandwich, sticks it in his shirt, and scuttles away. But he was in a safe place, and I got some hope. And what happened was they let him out after a couple days, and he went into a detox and a rehab. And I picked him up after the rehab, and we went to a meeting together. And he's still clean. So I know this works. And I know there's big power in prayer. Big. Like real big. Like as big as you can accept it, that's how big it is. It just keeps going. And it keeps going that way in my life. I had, during getting clean, I felt like I would get all the pieces in my life together except for relationships, intimate relationships with someone else. I didn't think I was going to get that. I mean, the reason being was that any time that I dated anybody in recovery, it was a mess. It was so horror show. I mean, exciting at first, to a new person, let's date, let's have some fun. And then, oh gosh, let's have sex. Like constantly for a couple of weeks, and then that starts wearing off. And what do you do? That's when I was really fucked. I had to talk to somebody on an intimate level and get real honest with them. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. So I had to end relationships and bolt like my ass was on fire behind. I'm confused. I don't know what I want to do with my life. And I would make up all kinds of stories to get out of relationships because I didn't know what to do once the sex stopped. I could be in a relationship. If our feet never had to touch the floor, I would be great. But I realized that that was really kind of empty. And, it was a real rush at first being clean and having sex. Wow. It was like having it for the first time. You know what I mean? What they talk about, like if you haven't experienced it on the natch, you haven't experienced it, was really true. It was like the first time. It was so amazing. But it got really old really quick. Because what happens in recovery is you feel everything. Everything. There's nothing to take the edge off. So you can't, at least I couldn't, like do any long-term major manipulations anymore. I had to start getting honest. And I had to really admit to myself that I don't have any tools. I don't know how to date people. I don't know what to do. And I had to start asking questions. And nobody knew. And at meetings, everybody would say, my relationship sucks. Well, you want to work a program? Get in a relationship. And so, the story that I lived with for a while was that the fellowship's not grown up enough yet to know about relationships. And I believed that. And I accepted the fact that I was never going to have another relationship that was going to be fulfilling. Never have one, period. But you know what? I came in here and I bought in and I bought the whole package and I bought the whole hug and I wasn't going to settle. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to look till I get some answers. And what happened was I got some answers. And what I was told was that you got to be willing to drop it. And I said, what does that mean? And they said, you got to get willing to get real straight with who you are, who you've been, where you've been, and what you're about. And I said, oh? Because you see, up to this point, I had been pretty much like, see, Brooklyn is like, it's a small town, really. There are people, like most people over there, I mean a lot of them anyways, that like never left the neighborhood, and they have like this third generation mentality, like from the neighborhood. And see, I wasn't about like the neighborhood when I was using. I was about like the city, and I was about the bikers and the queens and the whatever it was, I was there. And I really didn't feel like I was going to be accepted if I dropped that in meetings. You know, because like when you're hanging out with the man and you're like obviously sort of dating them, and people like do shit like throw stuff at you like bottles and curse at you and spit at you and all kinds of stuff and call you all kinds of names. And I didn't want to talk about that part of who I was at meetings. I was scared. I was scared to say that, yeah, I liked having sex with men in my life. It was frightening that turned me on. That made me a freak again, and I thought that I was going to be like chastised and that people would think that I was hugging them because I just wanted to hug a man because I was a fig. And people were going to get weird. But I didn't come in here for half the package. And I wasn't going to settle, and I dropped it. And some people got real screwed up about it. And some people muttered like fag and this and that and all kinds of stuff. But you know what? None of it mattered, because I got this feeling of freedom was awesome. It was so big and so powerful. I was sailing. It was amazing. I got married 4 weeks ago today. Exactly 4 Saturdays ago, I was on the altar, getting married. Because you see, I came to terms with who I am. And so when I got in this relationship, first place, rule number 1 was I went after somebody that was the type of person I would never go after, that I was completely intimidated by. She didn't have "date me" stamped on her forehead. And I was able to sit down with her and say, I've had sex with just about any kind of gender and everything in between on the planet. I've been myself just about every gender there is. And I just may continue to feel like, and I have that inside of me, and that's part of me. And that's not going to change. Well, maybe it will change. I don't care. It doesn't matter. But this is who I am and is where I'm at. And I'm being real straight with you. And she said, that's great. I love that you're in touch with who you are. She says, because half the reason why the world is so uptight is because everybody's so afraid of who they are. And meanwhile, it doesn't matter who you are. I said, wow. This is pretty cool. I like this. And so behind that, I have this relationship and this marriage today that's incredible. It's beyond belief. It's just the coolest thing since white bread. What we got is, check this out, I'm married a couple of weeks in. What happened was, like, the reason why she's not here is right after I committed to come here, she got a letter saying that she's got to do her graduation ceremony from college yesterday at Radio City Music Hall in Manhattan. And here's what the conversation was. I guess you're supposed to be in Indiana and I'm supposed to be in Manhattan. That's it. I'm so amazed by the life that I've got behind this. That's what our life is about. We're like totally about wherever we're at is where we're at. We don't try to manipulate life and manipulate each other. You know what? We love each other. And whoever that person happens to be, a day is okay. She can be happy, she can be a bitch, she can be whatever she wants, and it's okay. I can be happy, I can be on the rag, and it's okay. See, we don't expect each other to drag each other down. Nor do I know who she is, nor do I want to know who she is. Nor does she know who I am, so we don't like have any kind of label. We're not like any particular thing. So we have room to change and grow. One of the most rewarding things that you can do in recovery that I can do, and it's really, I see now, the basis and the foundation for my ability to function in relationships is to get a sponsor, and then to work a program, and then sponsor people. When I celebrated my year, my sponsor said to me, you got to start sponsoring people now. I said, great, no problem. As soon as somebody asks me, I'll sponsor them. He said, that's a very good dope fiend. I said, what are you talking about? He said, did you wait for the cop man to deliver? Did you wait for him to come and ask if you wanted to get high? I said, of course not. He says, well, you're not going to sit on your ass and wait for somebody to come and ask you to sponsor them. I said, isn't that kind of controlling and manipulating? He said, no, it's about reaching out. What do you think we're talking about here? It's about going over to that guy like they did to you and giving him a hug, giving him a text, inviting him out for coffee. Give him the literature. Put your phone number on it. I didn't like that. See, to me, sponsorship meant responsibility. It meant that I was going to have to do something. See, because I had all these like stupid issues about like I could still like fix things, and like I still thought that I had some power. And so I got a sponsee. And I turned him into a friend, which was a big mistake because I got emotionally involved. I mean, not like in a sexual way, like guy-to-guy thing, but like as like a real close friend thing. And I lost my objectivity. And when his ass was on his way out the door, I didn't want to ruin the friendship. So I didn't say, asshole, you're going to use. You ain't making meetings. You're not calling nobody. You're not in the literature. You ain't in your steps. And you ain't working on developing a relationship with a God of your understanding. And he used. I ain't seen him since. So what I learned about sponsorship is that it's not my responsibility. But it is my responsibility to do certain things. And that's to be objective. And that's to treat people with love and respect and dignity, because we don't get that out there. And when we come in here, we've been kicked our whole lives. So I treat my sponsees with respect and dignity today. And when they call me up, I got a phone call last week. I got a guy that keeps going out, and he was in jail. And I asked him, how you doing? Are you okay? I didn't say, asshole, you used again. We only read it every meeting. You're going to end up in jail. There you are. Am I supposed to be shocked? That's what I wanted to say. But I asked him, how you doing? Are you okay? And he said, yeah. And he said, are you still my sponsor? I said, of course. Do you want to stay clean? You want to try it again? You want to maybe try putting a program in your life this time instead of making one up? Yeah, used to make things up. Oh yeah, me and Mike got together and we've been reading the book together. It's great. Did you make a meeting? Well, that's sort of like a meeting. Sort of like a meeting ain't a meeting. My sponsor told me was that if I ain't there for the beginning, which is the opening prayer, if I ain't there for the secretary's break, if I ain't there for the closing prayer, I didn't make a meeting. If I missed any one of those things, I wasn't at a meeting. And I shouldn't tell anybody I was at a meeting because I'm full of shit. And I didn't like that because there were a lot of cool people hanging out in the parking lot and hanging out in the sidewalk outside. A lot of cool people. Really cool. Cool guys getting cool chicks. They were cool. Half of them are dead now. The other half don't know what hit them. I got 6 days again. I hate this fucking program. I hate you assholes talking about the steps and God. I hate yous. I got 4 days. My best friend's dead. In the parking lot. That's what goes on, man. This is like probably the most frightening thing that you can have is the disease of addiction. Because it's a real sneaky son of a bitch. And while you're in here nice and comfortable, your disease is out there doing push-ups. It's wait, one slip up. I got you. And you stand there like, what happened? What the fuck was that? I don't know what happened. I got a call when the guy said I saw the red light on the back of the train and I went and used. I swear to God. He's got a degree from Harvard Business School. And he used behind the freaking red light on a train. This disease is a real son of a bitch. It's waiting, and it's going to get you. I know, I stay in this 100%, because I know it's taking out better people than me. Like this. Gone. One of the women I dated in early recovery used for 1 day. She inherited some money. They found her in the trunk of the car with her girlfriend in a garbage bag a month later. See, she used one night, and the guy she copped from wanted to buy crack, so he sold him some shit that killed him. But as they were dying, they went to another dealer's house because they thought it was just that they did too much, so they went to cop something else, and they died in his house, and he didn't want to get busted, so he called up somebody else to come and put them in a bag, throw them in the trunk, and get rid of them. Because that's how we live when we're using. And in 1 day, you could be right back there in the thick of it. I know I can. I know they did. They didn't get a chance to come back and say, I got 1 day. They didn't get to escape. Young kids, man. It sucks. It's waiting. So I ain't gonna fuck with it. I lost those stupid big brass balls I used to have when I was out there. Walking into the den. being okay, liking the machine guns out on the tables, liking the knives, always looking for a nice bottle that you could break just in case something broke out, watching bodies lay in the corner of crack houses and being okay with that. See, I ain't with that no more. I want to live a really full and great life. And so it means for me that I got to do things. It means that when I get a new guy in my life, I got to go in the trenches with him. And I got to say, yeah, I sucked some dicks for a few dollars to buy some more fucking rocks. I done it. I got to be willing to drop that. So he feels okay saying, I know, I just 3 nights ago I got fucked in the ass and then hit over the head with a fucking hammer. Never got the $3 I was asking for. He can feel okay to drop it. I can say I know what it's like to sleep in the streets and eat garbage. Wait for somebody to finish and throw the pizza crust in the pail so I could pull it out. You think I scored? I got fresh pizza crust. I'm doing okay. I can climb in there with him. And between the two of us in there, we can get out. Thanks. Yeah, this was really an amazing thing for me. It was an amazing thing for me to be able to come out here in the first place to the first convention and get a workshop. Oh, it was very exciting. I thought it was like my sponsor, manipulating stuff, but it was like my higher power saying that it's time to get out of your area and start moving around and meeting some new people and learning that it works the same everywhere on the whole planet. It works on the whole planet. India, it works in the Arab Emirate states, it works everywhere. Russia, it works everywhere. Poland, all the same. It's the same everywhere. There's no uniqueness to people. Sorry. Nobody's unique. The 12 steps are going to change everybody's life if you allow them in. Everybody's. That's what they're about. That's why this works. That's why there's people all over this planet freaking out and can't believe that there's something like this that's so simple but so effective. I mean, I never did no rehab. I never did no detox. I never did nothing only because how I used, I never met anybody that talked about that shit, put a hand out to me. They were afraid to come near me. So I just didn't know anything existed. So I just crawled into a meeting and that's how I got clean. And that tells me that any addict seeking recovery can recover in Narcotics Anonymous. And at a date of time, by the grace of God, I never, ever have to use anything again. Yeah. The message is hope, and the promise is freedom. Freedom from active addiction. That's what we got going on here. Look at this place. Look at these people, man. Like in the mountains, in the middle of the Midwest, you can recover. In the cities, in the caverns, in the hallways, and in the basements, and on the rooftops, we can all crawl out and recover. How's that? We can all grow with love together, because that's what it's about. It's about this corny fucking thing, you know what I mean? This is corny. Oh, we grow with love, isn't that fun, huh? But it's really the truth. And the funny part is that that's what happens. Is that people love us until we can love ourselves and then love other people. Because when we get here, we don't love ourselves and we can't accept love from nobody. We don't trust nobody. We think it's all a con, man. That's how we live. But it's real genuine. We get to see that after a while because people take risks with us. And they answer the phone and they stay on the phone with us. And they hug us. And they let us fall on our faces and they let us fuck up. And they let us have horror show relationships, and they let us lose jobs, and they let us do all kinds of screwball things. We steal, and we fucking go with prostitutes, and we do like all kinds of fucking stupid things and crazy things when we get clean, because you remove the drug from the addict and you still got the addict. And we don't get clean and get perfect. We get clean and we get fucking crazy. I know I got crazy. I got real sick when I got clean. Real sick. See, what I was doing was acceptable in the world of people that used. When I got clean, I couldn't stop running to prostitutes. It was a fucking nightmare. Nightmare. I was so obsessed. Every other day, every third day, I had to run and go and purchase sex from prostitutes, and I hated it. And it killed me. And it was poison, and I was ashamed, and I was embarrassed, and it really hurt. Because I knew these were human beings, and for a few dollars, they'd sell their fucking soul, forget their ass. And I'd been on the other side of that freaking dollar a few times, and I knew what it felt like, but I couldn't stop. See, because I'm an addictive person. I'm an addict, man. And I'm powerless over the disease of addiction. So you take away the number one offender, which happened to be crack when I got here, and then the number two offender locks right in, which is sex. So we took that away. Took 4 years. Took 4 years. Living in shame and hiding it. My sponsor knew, but I was ashamed. But I didn't use. No matter what was going on in my life, I didn't use. Recovery is very, very, very simple. But there's no free lunch in Narcotics Anonymous. Everybody that's here earns their seat in this place. And if you're here, you earned that seat, don't give it up. Because you might not be able to get back to it. And no matter what goes on in your life, don't use. Because somebody needs you here. If you don't want to do it for yourself right now, do it for somebody else. I know I need you here. I know I need everybody in this room in my life. I need to see us here. I need the hugs. I need the love that I get here. I mean, the longer I stay clean, the more I got to do, it seems, to keep the disease at bay. But the greater the rewards I get. And I get all kinds of rewards. All kinds of rewards. Inside, it's like amazing inside. Is where the big ones are. And then a few material things come in as a result of the inside being okay. And I'm okay with that too. But I'm also okay without any material stuff. Doesn't really mean all that much. And I never thought I'd say that. When I came in, the thing they say to write the list of what you think you're going to get in recovery, like the Behind Your Wildest Dreams list there, Beyond Your Wildest Dreams. I had the Porsche, I had the house, I had the car, all that business. I never thought I would get what I got. And what I got is a sense of self that is so okay. It's just amazing. It really is amazing. I really feel like I know every single person here. And wherever I go on the planet, I know every single person I bump into. I know them. You know why I know them? Because they're human. That's right, Homo sapiens, every last one of them. And today, so am I. And that's as a result of coming here. See, I looked at all the defects and all of that stuff that makes us human. And so being obsessive and fucking up and being rude and being an asshole and making mistakes and making jokes when somebody's in a bad mood, not realizing it, and doing all kinds of stupid things is what makes me human. It doesn't make me bad. So it's what makes you human. That's what makes everybody unique. So I have a common bond now. I'm no longer alienated by my disease. I have a common bond with everybody on the planet, and that's humanity. And I got it from the 12 steps in Narcotics Anonymous. I got to look at exactly who I am, exactly what who I am does to you. So I just try not to do things that ruffle your feathers today. And if it happens, it's okay too. You know what I mean? It happens. I love the freedom that I have to do that. I love the freedom that I have to be with other people. I love the fact that I'm not living in fear today. I love the fact that I'm not living in self-loathing today. I love the fact that I don't hate me today. I love the fact that I don't hate you today. And a day at a time keeps getting better. Keeps getting better. So if you're here and you know, may not make a whole lot of sense, may not really mean much, keep coming. Give yourself a break. Trust that it's worked for me. Trust that when I came in, I was like a completely mentally handicapped piece of garbage. Freaked out, twisted, couldn't speak, couldn't shave, shook. I really, really felt that I was never, ever, ever going to be normal or okay, functional. I never thought. Cried, mess. It's not a mess today. Posture. That's what I got. I got a sense of like self. I got a sense of I'm okay. I'm no longer stupid. I'm no longer afraid. No. It's available to each and every one of you. Because if it could happen for me, believe me, my sponsor cried like a baby at my wedding because he couldn't believe that I actually got married. He saw the miracle from start to finish to today. Never finished. You got to see it happen. That's magical. Get married, I couldn't even speak to somebody else. I couldn't speak to anybody anymore. It's gone. Over. And the process is like taking hold of my life. I show up. I'm available for service in Narcotics Anonymous. Whenever Narcotics Anonymous calls, I'm there. Doesn't mean it needs to be open and I can do it. I'm there. If somebody calls me up any time of the day and night, I'm there. This saved my life. Saved it. This gave me a life. Gave me a life that's like so far removed from anything I have ever known. It's bizarre. I have a great life today. It's not my life, it's a life. I'm living it. I love it. I love it. I'm so free. It's funny. Everybody real comfortable? Benches feel real good? Alright, well, I'm going to do what Sarah did. And I want to thank the community for having me here. It was really, really nice. Honor to be here. Just to be here is an honor. And for these cats that called me up and invited me out, it was wow. Real nice and real big. I want to thank you for a fabulous convention. I'm grateful, real grateful I could express that to have this facility to use. It's really beautiful, it's got fabulous vibes, and the price is right, look at his face. My name's Tommy.